Okay, I'm back. Let's carry on. I forgot exactly what was being said, but it's okay.
School and talking to people that you trust on campus about, is this something that makes sense? Could this be feasible? What do you think that the obstacles would be? That's kind of how I approached it when I started at a new school site. I talked to people who I felt like could trust, who'd been there for 10, 11 years. And I kind of got the lowdown before I went to my principal about it. So I took that route. And once it comes to, the hard part is like getting the
I'm just gonna say this, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but many people are kind of obsessed with the levels of authority and structure within a school system. And I get it. I honestly do like see why people would be comfortable in it and why they seek it out. But that doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean it's right. I'm just endlessly terrified and grossed out and upset by the fact that transgenderism is now like a fully practiced indoctrination tactic within schools. Like children are learning about transgenderism and children are being improperly educated about transgenderism and about all the drugs. And I honestly think that kids really think that you can just magically change your sex like a frog with medical intervention. Kids are not mentally really able to understand what medical transition is, therefore, we shouldn't be teaching it to them, or even social transition. It's wrong all around.
getting the okay sometimes. The easy part is just like finding resources online. There are so many resources online for videos you can play with the kids or worksheets and things that you can put.
Yeah, they're really fucking obsessed with videos. They're always like, oh, come, you gotta watch this video about transgenderism. Well, I mean, that's a tool that the cult uses, though, is these videos. I think we're I think we're finally starting to see a decline, thanks be to God. But like, a big reason we've had so many transgenders, so many girl transgenders in the past few years is because of YouTube videos about them. Okay?
Together, there's always different events going on throughout the year that you can talk to students about and tie it into, how we can build up our community, not just for LGBTQ youth on campus, but for people who have other diverse identities, so that intersectionality, you can play into that too, to always just have something to be kind of talking to your students.
They're so obsessed with their cult language. Intersectionality has really become a cult buzzword for them.
About, and then really just change it up depending on their age level.
Well, you've already mentioned that sometimes taking on some of these things, like you had mentioned, Friday, you're already depleted, but you always felt like it filled your cup. We might have to write reports at home a little bit more. There's so many different things in our field. I'm just really curious, out of everything, you obviously are so passionate about this topic. Why is this topic so important to you that you are willing to do these extra steps?
I think, well, there's two reasons. One, okay, we're all data nerds because we're school psychs. And there's research that's being done by GLSEN, by the Trevor Project, by other organizations who are finding how...
Research nerds for the information she wants to seek out. Research nerds not for any other differing viewpoint, only the one that she wants to entertain, or ones that she wants to entertain.
How difficult it is for LGBTQ youth to just be able to wake up and show up at school. LGBTQ youth, like, we've all seen the information, we've all seen the numbers. They have much higher rates, especially trans youth. And then when you add the race and ethnicity into it and you think of trans...
She just said they have much higher rates. She didn't say of what. She just said they have much higher rates. Of what? I'm sure she was implying suicide, but that's bullshit. Anyone who shouts that they're going to kill themselves is less likely to kill themselves. The people who are most likely to kill themselves show no warning signs and don't ever say that, really, or almost never say that. They're not like, I'm going to kill myself if you don't give me my tablet or whatever the fuck.
Youth of color, the numbers of the children who are experiencing mental health issues, suicidality, familial rejection, homelessness. I mean, it's just wild to me that more people aren't talking about this and more people aren't.
Homelessness is pretty serious to be dealing with as a child. I don't think she meant to, but I think she's actually implying that there's a correlation or connection of trans youth and homelessness, which again, for the 1,000,000th time, is a sign of trauma, which likely causes transgenderism. I don't know how many times I have to say that.
Doing this because the things that...
By the way, now, okay, I'm just going to say this because I haven't said this yet. Now, today, in 2024, there are a bunch of people talking about transgenderism. They're interviewing people about having been shunned or fired or whatever the fuck for speaking against transgenderism, or not even necessarily speaking against transgenderism, just saying that biological sex is real. And I'm really, really frustrated about it because I was saying the same shit 5-6 years ago. Other women were saying the same shit 5-6 years ago. Other people were saying the same shit longer than 5 or 6 years ago. Why the fuck did it take everyone so long to catch on? Now we have detransitioned children. Now we have fucked up children. I'm not saying fucked up within detransition. I'm saying their minds are fucked up. Even if a child got no surgeries, no hormones, I imagine it would mess with your mind to socially transition and then socially retransition back. I'm so sick of this.
We can do to counteract the kinds of protective factors that we can try and put in place in our schools really aren't that big of things, right? Like,
you know, this is kind of like, I get why she's so obsessed with this, because she really thinks she's making a difference in the world, and she really thinks she's making a difference in her district, and she really thinks that she's helping trans youth, and maybe she is to a certain degree, but lying to children doesn't really tend to help them. I'm going to say that. Lying to children does not help them. If you're going along with a kid's imaginary pronouns, if you're going along with a kid's imaginary name, if you're going along with a kid and saying, okay, yeah, let's get you to a doctor and get you to transition, that's not helping them, it's harming them. And they're none the wiser to know that that isn't helping them, it's harming them. They don't get that. They don't understand it. They're too young. But what I meant to say was... Sorry, my cats are fighting. Hey! Psst! Cut it out. You guys stop. Please stop. What I meant to say was... Wouldn't it be easy for it to just be this simple? To just be I know people really want to make a difference in the world, and they really want to help kids or whatever. They think that by doing things like this, they're really going to make a difference in the world. They have this Band-Aid, right? They have these tools that she keeps talking about. They have these tools. They have these methods. She has a course of action for trans youth. And yeah, it would be cool if it were that simple to quote unquote help kids. But the fact of the matter is that it's not that simple. And it never will be. It's not as simple as just entertaining this child's fantasy of being the opposite sex, or even going by they. Just giving a kid what they want is not that simple. Just giving a kid what they want is not going to solve a deeper issue. Maybe if you had actually ever cared for children, and I'm saying like babysat children, you would know this, because caring for kids in a school setting is different. But I digress.
Saw one data point from Trevor Project that said students whose pronouns were affirmed, like somebody who's using the name and pronouns that they would like other people to use for them, that protected them so much from just feeling like, they're worthy, it protected them from suicidality. Yeah. And that,
I'm wondering if I'm thinking here, because there could be two things going on here, or a mixture of both. Maybe some of these kids have such traumatic pasts that almost nothing they've ever wanted has been entertained. Okay, and yeah, that's bad. Like, if you feel like you've never gotten what you wanted, if you feel like you've never had a stable home, if you just feel really defeated, maybe if you ask people to tell you, to call you pretend pronouns, maybe that feels really great in the moment. Maybe it does. But again, that's not a solution. I'm just thinking of now, but I'm also thinking of spoiled children, because spoiled children are also trans. Okay, here we are. Okay, so a lot of the time, I would say more often than not with children, when they're acting out, they want a boundary. They literally want someone to come up to them and say, oh no, you cannot do that. Or, okay, time out. You did that. You're getting a timeout. They are acting out because they want attention, even if it's negative attention. And this trans trend is negative attention. It's misguided attention, but it's attention. So I think that's what kids are really seeking out. Obviously, this is a religious cult, and it's been very cleverly disguised as not being one. It's a human rights issue. It's not a cult. Bullshit, but it is. And kids, and what's honestly, unfortunately, really smart on the indoctrinators' parts is they don't even realize they're going into this cult. They don't think it's a cult. They think it's who they are. They think they're really being their true selves. And they're too young, and they're likely too young to understand the gravity of it. Obviously, this woman wants to deter kids from suicide, deter youth from whatever. And in her mind, she is. But in reality, in the real fucking world, which we are currently in, it doesn't actually help. It hinders.
It's a simple thing that you can do. It takes no resources. It may take a little brain power, depending on the pronouns, and that pronoun conversion and grammar, because that's not my strong suit, but it may take a little brain power, depending on the pronouns, and that pronoun conversion and grammar, because that's not my strong suit, but,
Sorry, I was drinking water. Grammar is actually important. I'm endlessly frustrated because so many people have shit grammar today and shit spelling. And I actually know that it's gotten worse. Okay? Sorry, it's gotten worse. Anyway.
Practice it, and then just call them what they want to be called, and you're already making such a huge impact on their life. And that...
I watch Super Nanny a lot. I have watched Super Nanny a lot. And at least in the Audi's episodes, I haven't watched a lot of the British episodes. The Audi's American episodes, I would say the number one problem is kids not going to sleep. Kids not going to bed. Like kids getting up out of bed and coming to see mom and dad, and then mom and dad actually interact with the child, and then that keeps the child up longer, etc. Super Nanny has a method to not allow that type of behavior. To just nip that shit in the bud, okay? So that it does not continue. Again, this is a boundary. Your kids should be in bed. Kids need to be in bed. They shouldn't be up in the night, way past their bedtime, interacting with mom and dad. Period. Sorry. And a lot of people let their emotions, it's so frustrating to watch on the show because Super Nanny knows exactly what the fuck she's doing. She's been doing it for literal decades. And she's like, here's what you should do. And the parents are like, oh, that's too harsh. That's not gonna work. It's too hard. Their emotions are in the way, is my point. And transgender kids and whatever adults are quote unquote caring for them, their emotions are in the way. Okay? This child comes to them and says, I want this, and the adult says, you can have it. I will let your teachers know you go by different pronouns, and I will let them know your new name. It's not helpful. You're letting the child live in a delusion. How is that helpful?
Kind of thing, I think, really, when I see the numbers about, how negatively impacted they may be, depending on where they are, who they live with, that sort of thing, what they have access to, what kind of healthcare or gender affirming resources they have access to, it fires.
Gender affirming resources. Oh my God.
Yeah, as you can tell. Yeah. The other reason is it's personal for me too. I mean, I identify as bisexual. I have family members. I have friends.
That doesn't really come as a surprise. Why make it your whole personality, though? Why make your sexuality your whole entire personality? Like, your whole entire thing? It's like, why do you need to, shout that from every rooftop? I just don't. Isn't it obvious? If you really are something, if you really are some way, isn't it going to be obvious to people without you directly saying it? Yeah. It is.
A lot of people in my life identify somewhere on the LGBTQ spectrum, and so I'm doing it for every one of them too.
Again, the obsession, the LGBTQ spectrum. Like it's this friggin' holy grail.
I think it's so interesting, just a little bit that you've shared about using the pronouns that affirm the student. Having just a club on your campus, you don't even need to attend it. Like you mentioned, these are things that are, in some of our viewpoints, we think we have to do all these things. And these are so minimal, yet
Right.
the effect size of them is exponential. Yeah. That's incredible.
Starting introducing yourself with your pronouns, putting your pronouns in your email signature, or if you have
Oh my God, so fucking stupid. Introducing yourself with your pronouns. Bruh, I was going to a yoga studio and this one gal was the teacher and she was like, hey everyone, I'm so-and-so, my pronouns are she, her, and I fucking never went back to that studio. Okay, I purposely went to a corporately owned yoga studio so I wouldn't have to deal with that shit because that shit is rampant in Portland and I hate it. Imagine being fucking stupid and obnoxious enough to say, hey, I'm so-and-so, so-and-so. I use these pronouns. Also, having it in your email signature is fucking embarrassing and unprofessional. Quote me.
List of business cards on your business cards. You know, I got some free. They're like
on your business cards. Let everyone know you're in on the cult on your business cards. So stupid.
pride flags, but they're paper. They're like cardstock. I got them from a local LGBTQ affairs office within our county, and I put them up in the window of my office. So
I just love rattling off those letters, don't they? They just love it. They do it every chance they get.
putting things up on the walls, or in windows, so that it's visible to other people on campus. That visibility, I think, is really important. Glisten makes these really great safe space kits.
Oh my god, okay, we'll listen to that in a second, but just being really obsessed with this is very strange to me.
That have a sticker that says like safe space or safe zone, and I know other organizations have.
You know, I walked by a coffee shop recently. I didn't go in, but I'm pretty sure it was connected to like a bigger building, like a bigger office building. And I was kind of looking inside, and honestly, I didn't really like the decor. I thought it looked kind of sterile. Like there was clearly a little bit of effort made, but it looked just kind of it didn't really look like somewhere I would want to hang out. I guess it looked like it was connected to a corporate building, shocker, but they had a sticker by the door that was the transgender flag. The trans and the one with the rainbow and the triangle tranny colors. Anyway, it had a sticker on the door and it was like, this is a safe space. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? What does that actually mean? Your business has this sticker on it that says it's pro-gay and pro-trans, and you're a coffee shop? Like, I just don't understand the need to assert that fact.
Similar ones, but something like that with a little rainbow flag or however it's designed is another indicator for students that this is a person who may be more aware and maybe more open to talking about identities, or maybe a place that I feel like I can be myself with.
Why the fuck would I go into that coffee shop and be like, hey, I'm trans. Hey, I'm lesbian. Hey. I was walking outside and I felt harassed by my sexuality. Can you help me? It's a fucking coffee shop. Ma'am, this is a Wendy's.
Mm-hmm. Those are very things that don't take a lot of work, but do have a really big impact.
And again, all of these wonderful resources that you are talking about here are going to be in our show notes. So just writing down the long list. I'm making sure everyone who's listening that we get all of this great.
It's kind of fascist, honestly. The amount of transgender bull that I see here and everywhere is really, really frightening. My favorite post I ever made on Hops Be Like, which is now defunct, which is now extinct. But it was a memes page. It was a radical leaning memes page that I had. I posted 2 pictures. I'm forgetting the name of the. Okay, one was in Munich around in the 30s. Okay, it was just a regular city street in Munich in the 30s, and it had all these Nazi flags everywhere, decorating the whole street. And I put it right next to a picture from a couple years ago of a London street that looked extremely similar because it had the transgender LGBT alphabet mafia flags, just like the Nazi flags in Munich. I was going to say I'm not comparing transgenderism, the cult of transgenderism, to Nazis, but I guess I am, and I guess I just did. And I very clearly did with that post, didn't I? I mean, they're both pro-eugenics, right?
Information here.
Yeah.
So we've already talked about a lot of
I was just thinking, I wonder how many kids will have been sterilized thanks to the trans cult once all this is over. And I'm going to say this. I don't know if we're even going to finish this because this is already a really long video. But I see this a lot on people speaking out about transgenderism. Is I see this comment almost verbatim a lot, which is, I'm okay with adults transitioning, but kids transitioning is wrong. If a consenting adult wants to do that, that's up to them, but doing it to kids and allowing kids to do that is not okay. No, moron, it's actually not okay for any group, adult or child. Both ways, it's wrong. How can you say that? How can you say, oh, it's okay for an adult to do it, but not a child to do it? I think it's inherently wrong for a child to do that, but it's okay if a consenting adult wants to do it. Excuse me? Excuse me? People compare this to stupid shit too, like tattoos. Guess what? I don't even think it's gonna really impact your life that much if you get a tattoo as a child. If you get it in a not visible place. Yeah, that's not great parenting or whatever the fuck, but I don't think it's gonna fucking ruin your life like sterilizing yourself would. It is medical malpractice 100% of the time to quote unquote transition anyone at any age. It is always wrong. I don't like saying this, but people need to be told that. So you're welcome.
actionable steps for psychologists who are interested in learning more about this information, who may want to start some things or at least investigate what has been going on at our school. Is there anything else when you think about actionable steps? Because I know school psychologists, right? We're like, theory's interesting, data's interesting. What can I do with this? Is there anything else that you would add?
I think if you don't already, start following more queer folks of color on social media. The more visible people of different gender identities and sexual orientations are within your life, I think the more that you're going to just learn about how different gender identities or gender expressions can show up to different people. And that'll help you just even subconsciously, like as you're like doom scrolling, you'll still be learning. So I can share some really
eye roll.
great. I follow somebody on Instagram and it's just like, but I can share a few
Yeah, I'm sure she's really making a difference by following a bunch of queer people of color on Instagram.
different like popular influencers. I can share their handles, and that's a recommendation I would have.
She can share their handles.
Exploring the different websites to see, what you can kind of pull from. Another one to add to the list, Human Rights Campaign has this whole department called Welcoming Schools, and they've created a really great resource, like a wealth of resources related to especially books. So when you're thinking about if you have any in with curriculum development, or when you are supporting teachers with developing new or different lesson plans, there are lists of books or lessons that link in the Common Core standards. So there's ideas for ways that you can incorporate just different identities when you are giving like a math lesson. How can you make just everything that you do, everything that teachers do, be more inclusive? There's so much out there. It's just a matter of kind of, knowing where to find it.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned a couple things. You talked about curriculum. You talked about being on some different committees. And before you and I started recording, we were actually, for everyone else to know, we were also talking about literacy. And you were just mentioning how surprised you were that
Yeah, literacy is in crisis mode right now.
trainings that school psychologists were not being invited to. Like there was this new intervention that's going on. Yeah, school psychologists usually like to know about reading interventions. Now, we might not need to know it to the same extent as someone who's actually implementing it, but if we're taking this into consideration, isn't it helpful? How do you get yourself involved in all of these different things? Because a lot of times they don't think about, hey, we don't have a school psychologist on this committee here. Yeah. So how do you...
I just had a thought because I'm watching this woman, and earlier in the part one, I said this is like a TV show. And I'm glad I had this realization, which is that a lot of people have a hard time being real on camera. A lot of people have a hard time being real being real in normal life. A lot of people, I think it really is like ingrained in our culture to just grin and bear it, like all the time. even when you really, truly don't want to. But anyway, I think that people really, like, as soon as a camera is on them and they're being recorded, they're kind of being fake because they know they're being recorded. I've said this before, is the cameras are sacred. Okay, they're the most sacred tool, one of the most sacred tools we have. Okay? And yeah, people do have a hard time being real on them, but again, this is why people make videos like this. This is why transgenderism got so popular, is because people were doing it on camera, and then others were like, oh my God, I can do that too. And then they started doing it. And when you are on camera talking about this shit ad nauseum, it makes you feel like you're doing something. It makes you say the things you want to say, and then them being on camera makes it feel more quote unquote real, when it is in fact a delusion. It's a distraction. It's not real. It's not right either. Okay? It's hard to be real on camera. I would argue that I'm one of the only people on YouTube who does. But anyway, it's challenging. And the attitudes that I've gotten from both of these women this entire video is just quite fake. There's very much a front involved. Okay?
Determine, here's how I want to use my time.
Well, I'm loud. And I can talk a lot. Those are the two things. Just be loud and talk a lot and ask questions. No, I would say I came to this new district, and I guess even when I was at my other organization prior, it's just asking questions.
Be loud and talk a lot. Okay.
And asking about getting involved. I think half the time or more, my experience was I would say, hey, can I go to this training? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about it. So it's not like they're trying to exclude school psychologists, or they're trying. It's just that folks don't always have us in the forefront of their mind. And so I always ask, can I join that training? Can I participate in that thing? And then just seek out. Like when I joined Santa Clara Unified, I was on their website right before I even started. I was looking at the different, just learning about the district. I wanted to know what's going on in this district. And I found a page on the website that talked about committees. And one of them was an LGBTQ QIA plus committee. And I emailed the person that was listed.
LGBTQQIA. That's a new one for me. Queer, questioning, intersex, asexual.
I said, hey, I just joined this staff. Can I be a part of this? And they were like, sure. So my third day of work with the district was going to this committee meeting and networking. And a lot of it is just networking and, that's the thing that school psychs do best, is network. So I just asking questions, being open, networking, and coming in with a sense of, how can I do this to help you improve in your work? How can I do this to help, my students improve? And I think when you have that mentality and you create that persona at work, you'll build up that reputation, and then you'll get invited to so many more meetings. No, but then eventually, hopefully you'll affect change, right? Like that's the goal. So
it is always interesting when I think back on my career, how many times I just said yes to go to a meeting on something that 10 years later I'm like, and now I'm doing this.
What is the goal? What if this other woman had all of her wildest dreams come true? What would they be? And if she had all her wildest dreams come true when it came to queer and trans youth, what the fuck would that look like? Would she not have a job anymore? Would everyone just be 100% accepting all of the time? Like, what the hell would it be? I don't even think she knows.
Because I said yes 10 years ago to come to a meeting, we don't quite...
Isn't it just, like, doesn't she have a job because of victimhood? Doesn't she have a job because of the insistence of victimhood? I know people who were gay or were lesbian or whatever the fuck growing up, and they were like, yeah, my life was hard. Yeah, I didn't have this, I didn't have that, but, like, I just carried on. Like, not everyone's, even if you're not gay or lesbian or trans, right? Some people have it hard for whatever reasons. And they just move the fuck on. They don't let it dictate their lives.
No, and where things are going to lead us, I do want to point out that most of the things that you've shared today was not, we have to be in charge of everything. Because I think that is something that a lot of school psychologists were always very protective of our time. And a lot of things that you can already be a part of other committees and other groups and other clubs. No one's saying that you have to be in charge of all of this.
Right. I've given a training on this topic many times, and there's everyone that always comes into the room, and maybe they're coming into the room because they need the information. They always say, this is something that is already happening in my school site, and I didn't know enough about it, or I didn't know how I could support. So, whether or not you feel as a school psych right now like you have the capacity to do this work is happening in some degree. And it could be really positive work because people are doing great work to advocate for rights of students. And it could be, depending on where you live, it could be that there are board policies that are being passed that are forced.
I can't wait to move out of Portland. I'm moving out of Portland next month. Thanks be to God. And guess what? I'm moving somewhere that's not liberal. I'm really excited.
Teachers to out students to their family, and that's really problematic and horrifying. And so something is happening in your district, whether it's positive or negative, and the question is, what is like the least restrictive way that you can get involved to kind of shift it to the positive, or just kind of bolster the good things that are going on.
What is the least restrictive way you could get involved? How can you insert yourself in the most pronounced way? The fuck?
Wonderful. Okay, we love to
wonderful.
Ask all of our guests, reflecting back to when you started in this field. What advice would you give to a school psychologist who's just starting out in this most interesting field of school psychology? Gosh.
A lot of the time with mental health issues, someone who is really out there, a patient who is really out there, really unique, gets more attention because they're really unique. This is what I'm thinking of right now.
Yeah, I think, well, we kind of already touched on this because I was going to say, don't feel like you have to wait to start doing this work, because I remember my first couple of years, I was so focused on just learning how to write a really good report or learning how to really understand what an SLD is. So I was like so focused on that. Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
I was like, I'll do that, next year. I'll do it later. And it's like, and then it took me 4 years before I felt like I could run a GSA club. And I'm like, man, I think back and I think I could have met so many more kids. I could have, just supported them for so much more time. So, going back to those little things, little changes, don't feel like you have to wait. Don't feel like you have to be a veteran. If you're new to the field, don't feel like you don't have enough experience or expertise or something to just start.
I love that. Well, this podcast is called The Prepared School Psychologist. When you think of the term prepared, what do you do to help yourself feel more prepared in your role?
I would say I am always...
You're not prepared. If you're telling children that they can have their imaginary pronouns and you're making a career out of it, then you're not prepared. You're prepared to do nothing but enable. And I don't know how that's helpful to kids. But anyway.
Communicating, as you can probably tell. I talk a lot. I communicate a lot. So consulting with other people. Talking to the people on my team helps me feel prepared, in whatever situation I'm doing. I can communicate with my school psych team. Because I've networked and made connections with school psychs in my county, with school psychs on the CAS board, I feel like I can consult with different folks depending on a situation I've got. And it helps prepare me for whatever life is throwing my way. That has made me feel like I'm continuing to be the most effective school psych I can be.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Katie, and spending some time and sharing so many amazing resources.
That's incredible. Why are you using such strong language?
With all of our listeners, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, I hope you found today's episode of the Prepared School Psych podcast informative. Remember, your expertise plays a vital
Yeah, a bunch of bullshit information.
Role in advocating. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more school psychologists like you. Thank you for listening and have a great day. That concludes another episode of the Prepared School Psych podcast. And I hope today's discussion equipped you not just with knowledge, but also the confidence to take action. Remember, every conversation we have and every resource we share builds a bridge towards a more inclusive and empowering learning landscape for our students. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe.
Builds a bridge for a more empowering and inclusive what?
Subscribe to the podcast for more insightful conversations and resources and empowering learning landscape for our students. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast.
So because this woman does GSA clubs, that makes a more inclusive learning environment overall for the entire school. Okay.
For more insightful conversations and resources to support your journey. Share this podcast with colleagues. We would love it if you would also rate and review the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Just Just a reminder, everyone, the information and advice provided in this podcast are for guidance purposes only, and all listeners are required to follow both federal and state law and their own school district guidelines and policies. Thank you.
Federal and state law don't dictate that you cannot entertain a child's imaginary pronouns. They don't dictate that transgenderism is inherently wrong. I can't really get over how fake this whole thing was. I've really always hated I've really always hated fake people. Just or not fake people, but people being fake. I suddenly remembered this gym teacher we had in elementary school, and we used to make fun of her because we said she was like a robot, and I think she was just trying to like address us, but she sounded robotic AF. I'm trying to think of something she would have said. She was like a normal person, and I think I did actually see her a few years later, and she was much more normal, so maybe she was like not as relaxed at this point with the tiny children, which I was. She would be like, "Okay, everyone, today we are going to run from this side of the gym to that side of the gym." And that's why we would make fun of her, because she always talked like that. We were like, why the fuck does she talk like that? But like, it was robotic. And I'm sure it's difficult to, address a class of young kids for elementary gym. But like, I'm just saying, like, this fakeness is a front. This fakeness is an attempt at trying to get others to also be fake. Okay? Let's actually I want to look at other vids by this person. Okay, well, the guest gal isn't even the main gal doing this podcast. The main gal doing this podcast is clearly that woman, the prepared school psychologist. But just by having her on and entertaining her, this woman is a problem. I know she doesn't think that, but she is. It's wrong. I'm sorry I've said this so many times, but I'll say it fucking again. It's wrong to entertain children's delusions like this. It's wrong to also entertain other people who are advocating to entertain children's delusions like this. It's wrong to behave so inauthentically like this. Okay? And I do mean that. I honestly mean that. It's wrong to behave like that. Pretty much in almost any capacity. I mean, this kind of cultural front that so many people have, that our society has, of just being really fake like this, really paved the way for transgenderism to be such a big indoctrination tool in schools. If people were a lot more real all the time, then I don't think this would have been so invasive. I wonder if more quote-unquote real places are less soaked in this juice. I'm thinking of like See, I was thinking of like East Coast people because they're like just a lot more brash and stuff, but I know some people who were in the trends cult over there, so. But now I'm thinking of maybe like the more impoverished states. Actually, I don't think the more impoverished states have a problem with the transgenderism that's this pronounced. You guys, I don't know. I don't fucking know. I don't live in the South. I don't know. But this behavior is really concerning. Treating children like this is wrong. It always has been. And it always will be. Okay? I hope that's what you take away from this video.